法案。本會現在恢復20
Bills. This Council resumes the second reading debate of the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2012. The chairperson of the Bills Committee, Ms. Starry Lee, will address this Council.
主席，本人謹以
Mr. President, as the chairperson of the Bills Committee, I would like to report the deliberations of the Bills Committee. The purpose of the Bills Committee is to amend the Stamp Duty Ordinance, Cap 1. This is about adjusting upward the duty rates and to extend the holding period in respect of special stamp duty. And also to introduce a BOI stamp duty on residential properties acquired by any person who is not a Hong Kong permanent resident. This includes companies. So on top of the existing special stamp duty, a BOI stamp duty is to be charged at a flat rate of 15% of all residential properties. These measures will apply to properties acquired on or after the 27th of October 2012. The bill has also introduced mechanism for negative vetting of any revisions to the rates. The Bills Committee has held 22 meetings with the administration to meet with and to receive views on the bill from relevant stakeholders and the public. The Bills Committee in general support the policy intent of the bill to curb short-term speculative activities by means of demand-side management measures. This will accord priority to the home ownership needs of Hong Kong permanent residents and to rein in the exuberance of the residential property market so as to ensure its healthy and stable development. Members in general believe the ultimate solution is to increase land and property supply as far as practicable. This will then address the problem of soaring property prices. Now, I would like to report on issues of particular concern to members and on issues where members have divergent views. First, effectiveness of the demand-side management measures. Some members believe that given the current tight supply of land and housing, the demand-side management measures would help to curb speculative activities and cool the exuberance of the property market. This will help to stabilize property prices, and that will reduce the risk of property bubble being formed. In the long run, it will help to ensure the stability of a monitoring system. But then, after the introduction of demand-side management measures, property prices have remained high. Some members therefore questioned whether the measures are effective in effectively cooling down the exuberant property market. Some members pointed out that transaction volume may have dropped substantially, but property prices have not been brought back to a level that's affordable to first-time home buyers. Also, the measures not helping Hong Kong permanent residents to acquire homes. Some members expressed concern that the measures will have an impact on the overall market operation, the business environment in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong's reputation as a free economy. And then for local and multinational corporations, their confidence in investment in Hong Kong may be undermined. So it will undermine our overall effectiveness and also Hong Kong's position as an international financial and trade center. Now, and also with low transaction volume in the property market, they may affect many related trades. So that's why some members asked the administration to micro-adjust the measures. And also some question whether the BSD is constitutional. Some members believe that BSD would deprive Hong Kong permanent residents the choice of buying properties in the name of companies. This is about acquisition of property, private property ownership in accordance with Article 105 of the Basic Law. Some members believe that if there are differential treatments by way of the BSD, it could form discrimination. And so it's against the Basic Law Provision 25, that is, everyone shall be equal before the law. Now, recently, the Court of Final Appeal has ruled that the 7-year residential requirement for CSSA recipients is unconstitutional. Some members question if the BSD may also lead to have the same problem. Now, according to the administration, their legal advice is that for the SD and the BSD, they are constitutional and they're in line with Article 105 of the Basic Law. It's about taxation measures. And such measure would help to curb speculative activities and accord priority to Hong Kong permanent residents with close ties to Hong Kong. This is in line with their policy objectives. Also, the BSD would only increase the transaction cost for companies and non-Hong Kong PRs. Is demand-side management. Is not about forbidding certain people from buying properties. The CFA's rulings is only on the CSSA scheme. It cannot be applied across the board to all other public services. And then for minors and mentally incapacitated HKPRs, now how does the measures apply to them? Now, the committee notes that for HKPRs who are minors or mentally incapacitated, they may also have need to buy residential properties. Now, through their guardians or trust, they may acquire residential properties, and there could be an exemption of BSD. Some members expressed concern that such exemption arrangement could be open to abuse. For Type 2 babies and their parents, they may make use of this exemption so they don't have to pay BSD when they buy properties in Hong Kong. So in response to members' concern, the administration has agreed to take over the proposed committee stage amendment of Mrs. Regina Ip, that is for those representing minors of HKPR minors in acquiring property, they will not enjoy the exemption. But then members have divergent views on the proposed CSA. Mr. Kenneth Leung has also proposed a CSA that is to introduce a domicile concept to the definition of HKPR. So only HKPRs domiciled in Hong Kong would be given exemption of BSD. At the meeting on the 12th of December 2012, Mr. Kenneth Leung's amendment was endorsed, and it was decided that I should move the CSA on behalf of the Bills Committee. The Bills Committee has also noted that Mr. James Su is going to move a CSA in his personal capacity, so that in relation to the exemption arrangement for Hong Kong PRs who are mentally incapacitated. And then there's another a CSA that is for transactions already made before the passage of the bill. HKPR minors and mentally incapacitated persons should still enjoy the BSD exemption. Now, on whether directors of companies are Hong Kong PRs, for these companies, if they buy the properties, they must pay BSD. Now, it is common in Hong Kong for people to acquire properties in the name of companies. And then companies may also have to buy properties for self-occupation of directors or for investment purpose. Now, some members expressed concern that if companies have to pay BSD, it would add to the cost of property transactions. Companies in particular, small SMEs, may suffer in terms of the expansion of their business. Some members believe that the BSD should not apply across the board to all companies. For companies owned by Hong Kong PRs, they should be exempted from paying BSD. There should be a statutory declaration system, and there could be heavier penalties and the imposition of criminal liabilities to deter any abuse. The administration's response is that if we exempt HKPR-owned companies from paying BSD, that would lead to a loophole, which could be subject to abuse. People, non-HKPRs may make use of companies owned by HKPRs to evade paying BSD. And then there are different types of companies, and in Hong Kong, we ought to provide a level playing field for all companies. This is a time-honored principle that we uphold. So even if we increase the penalties and so on, this may not be effective in plugging a loophole. Some members agreed with the administration. They have reservations about giving BSD exemption to HKPR-owned companies because we don't want to send a wrong message to the community, and people may question the determination of the administration in stabilizing the property market. As a result, the effectiveness of the measures would be undermined, and the administration's effort would be futile. On another meeting, on the 20th of December of the Bills Committee, Mr. Tommy Jones, CSA, was supported. That is for HKPR-owned companies, there could be full exemption from BSD. And then Mr. Abraham Shack's proposed amendment was also endorsed by the Bills Committee, so that under certain conditions, Hong Kong PR-owned companies could get a refund of the BSD already paid. I will be moving these CSAs on behalf of the Bills Committee later on. Now, on the application of BSD to charitable institutions exempt from tax under Section 88 of the Inland Revenue Ordinance Cap 112, some members believe that for eligible charitable institutions, if they buy residential property solely for charitable purpose or for use as staff quarters, they should be given BSD exemption, or they should be given a refund of the BSD after a certain period. Otherwise, these institutions may not be able to carry out a charitable work in the interest of the community. The administration said that the arrangement could be open to abuse, and some may go through charitable institutions in acquiring residential properties in order to evade the BSD. It's difficult for the administration to ascertain whether residential property is acquired for charitable purpose. So to plug the loophole, the administration will have to conduct a comprehensive review on the taxation exemption arrangement for charitable institutions. But this is an extraordinary measure under the current exceptional circumstances, so this arrangement would be against the principle of proportionality. Well, the administration has to be careful in according priorities to the housing needs of different groups and sectors. There's a need to strike the right balance. To take into account of the needs of charitable organizations, already the administration has provided in the bill that charitable institutions may be given exemption of BSD. The Bills Committee notes that Mr. James To will be moving a CSA in his own personal capacity to exempt acquisitions of residential properties made by charitable institutions or trusts. Adjusting the BSD rate and SSD rate. There is Section 63A in the bill. It will allow the administration to revise BSD and SSDs in the form of a subsidiary legislation for negative vetting by the Legislative Council. Now, for the various demand-side management measures, these are extraordinary measures taken in exceptional circumstances. Now, there are external factors that may affect the property market, like the global economy and the tax rate trend, the interest rate trend, and so on. These are all sensitive issues. So if we are able to revise BSD and SSD rates by way of negative vetting, that will provide the necessary flexibility to the administration. The administration can have regard to the latest economic situation and global environment in adjusting the rates accordingly. There could be a revision of the rate to zero as necessary to ensure the healthy development of the property market. Now, for taxation measures, usually they come into effect immediately, and if there's negative vetting, it will avoid market speculation and speculation. But then some members believe this arrangement is totally undesirable because it will undermine the Legislative Council's powers in scrutinizing legislation. And also the Council is supposed to be the gatekeeper of in monitoring government's works. That's why Mr. James is going to move a CSA so that in future, when there's any revision of the BSD or SSD rate, there should be positive vetting. Or the legislature could move a resolution to make amendments as necessary. Mr. Martin Liao has also moved a CSA on the procedure in revising rates. The Financial Secretary could, through Gazetto, revise the relevant BSD and SSD rates. From the date of Gazetto, the new rates will commence. And within 6 months of the Gazetto, or if LegCo would not endorse the arrangement, such a notice would then cease to have effect immediately. Now, if the administration has suggested that in response to all these amendments, that if in future there is need to revise the BSD or SSD rate upwards, bill will be introduced for the purpose. But where there's a need to revise downwards the BSD and SSD rates, it will be done by way of negative vetting. During the resumption of a second reading debate, the Secretary for Transport and Housing will give a formal undertaking. A sunset clause for the demand-side management measures. Members have debated many times whether there should be a sunset clause for the demand-side management measures. Some members believe that the administration should set objective and quantitative and quantifiable targets. So this is to enhance the transparency of the relevant measures. For investors and property buyers, they are able to do their own risk assessment as a result and make a decision on whether they should acquire properties. Some members asked the administration to come up with a sunset clause. This will assure certainty, and it will also maintain the confidence of the business sector in the stable development of the property market. Some other members have expressed reservation about a sunset clause because there's not a single indicator that could reflect the overall situation of the property market. The property market is complex, and there are also external factors affecting the market. So it's unrealistic to have a sunset clause. It may also send out the wrong message to the market and stimulates demand. It will undermine the effectiveness of the relevant measures. The administration has undertaken that after the bill is passed within a year, there will be a review and a report will be given to the Legislative Council. On the 20th of December, at the Bills Committee meeting, a motion was passed for me to move the proposed CSA of Mr. Tommy Cheung. That is, the BSD and SSD will cease to have effect at midnight on the 31st of December 2014. And also, Mr. Andrew Leung's amendment was passed so that the relevant measures will cease to have effect at midnight on the 26th of October 2015. About refund of BSD for redevelopment. The Bills Committee notes that if there is anyone having paid BSD in respect of an instrument affecting the acquisition of a residential property for redevelopment purpose, they may apply for a refund of the BSD payment provided that the construction of the redevelopment projects completed within 6 years or within the time extension as permitted under the bill. Some members believe the 6-year period is not flexible enough. It may not cater for the practical steps and actual operation involved in redevelopment. Some members are also of the view that requiring private developers to pay the BSD as and when individual units on the lot are required would add to the cost of redevelopment, thereby dampening private developers' interest in redevelopment. Some members have requested the administration to consider exempting giving early refunds of the BSD. Having considered the views of members and deputations, and also it is the government's policy intent to facilitate redevelopment, the administration has agreed to move a CSA to improve upon the mechanism. Now, if a developer has already obtained the whole lot for redevelopment and there's already been approval by the buildings authority, or there's consent given by the buildings authority for any redevelopment on the lot, or for the clearance of any structures already on the lot, but not including building structures that are prohibited from being cleared under any ordinances, then the developer may apply for a refund of the BSD already paid. Now, the refund could be advanced by 4 to 5 years. It will cater to different scenarios. In redevelopment, it will give developers more flexibility. The members believe the revised refund mechanism is acceptable. In response to members' concern, the views of the Bar Association and Hong Kong Law Society, the administration has also agreed to move a CSA for instruments not duly stamped with the BSD. They could be admissible in court. But such instruments must be provided by people or parties who are not the buyers of properties. Now, because some may be forced to sell their residential property and buy replacement property for whatever reason, so in the light of the views of the Law Society, the administration will move a CSA for the exemption scope of BSD. It will be expanded to cover 5 other different scenarios. Now, the administration is going to move a number of CSAs to improve upon the drafting of the bill as well. On the 18th of February, the Bills Committee held another meeting on the administration's latest proposal, that is a rate adjustment mechanism for BSD and SSD. Mr. Kenneth Leung's motion was carried, urging the administration to defer the resumption of the second reading debate of the bill. It will allow the Bills Committee adequate time to consider the latest proposal and the relevant legislative procedure as put forward by the administration. So those are the views. And that's the report of the Bills on the work of the Bills Committee. Now, a Bills Committee, the House Committee was endorsed the setting of the Bills Committee. We spent over 44 hours in deliberating the bill. I would like to thank the officials concerned, the Secretariat and members for their hard work. For the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2012 is resumption of second reading debate. Now, next, I'd like to declare that I own properties. I am an accountant by profession. My employer provides taxation advice to different clients, though I'm not involved in such work. Now, on behalf of the DAB, I would like to give our views on the bill. Before the harsh measures were introduced, property market exuberance kept soaring, and the soar of property prices far exceeded the growth of the economy. Properties became unaffordable. 9 months before the harsh measures were introduced, property prices went up by some 20%. Compared to the low in 2008, that's an increase of 108%. Now, there's a flood of capital. There's the ultra-low interest rate. Renminbi kept appreciating. People were getting keener to buy properties. And also there's a shortfall in land and housing supply, so there's an imbalance between supply and demand. So the property market became out of control. Now there's a strong demand, there's a short supply, and as a result, Hong Kong was rated as the city with the most unaffordable housing, and also is rated as the city with the highest risk of a property bubble. A U.S. consultancy firm recently published a housing price survey of 360 cities. In Hong Kong, the affordability of housing, that is 14.9 times. That means for a middle-class household, if they don't spend any money on food or anything else, they just spend money on mortgage, it would take them 14.9 years before they could buy just an average unit. Even scholars in charge of the survey say that in Hong Kong, housing is seriously unaffordable. The Economist also conducted another survey. Of all the global economies, Hong Kong has the highest risk of a property bubble. Now, property prices keep going up and properties become unaffordable. The DAB supports the demand-side management measures, the so-called harsh measures. This will curb short-term speculation, especially when there is serious imbalance between supply and demand. There is a need to accord priority to the housing needs of Hong Kong PRs. After the harsh measures were introduced, the property markets cooled down. Within a year of the introduction of the harsh measure, property prices have not soared as much. For private housing, from October 2012, since the introduction of the harsh measures, instead of an increase of 21%, property prices only went up by 10.1%. For a 1,070 square foot unit, in the year before, the price increase was 11.8%, now it's dropped to 0.9%. For the smaller units, that is less than 400 square feet, in 2013, property prices went up 8.7%, but in 2012, the increase was 30.2%. So it's a substantial drop. And then in recent months, we can see that property developers are offering various promotion in selling first-hand properties. For example, in Tin Hau, there's a new housing development. The price was 20% lower. And some developers have said that they're going to offer prices close to those in the secondary market so that they could sell their units. And so there's now a reduction in prices, both in the primary and secondary property market. We can see if the administration did not introduce this bill and the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2013, property prices would have soared further, and we will not be able to estimate the extent of public grievances. Now, there's malady in the property market, so we have to come up with proper measures. And what is the right solution to increase supply? But we can't increase supply overnight. As for adjusting interest rate, we're bound by the linked exchange rate, so there's little we can do. Now, the DAB, of course, believes that the harsh measures are not the ultimate solution. Even with these measures, we could only slow down the increase in property prices and cool down the exuberance in the market temporarily. Harsh measures did work for its intended purpose, but this is just painkiller. There is side effect. First, for BSD, it targets non-HAPR and companies. At the same time, it would also affect real users and investors. For example, Hong Kong people who buy residential properties in the name of companies, or companies who buy residential properties as staff quarters. And this will undermine people's incentive in investing in Hong Kong's properties. And also, the harsh measures have caused a substantial drop in transaction volume. The relevant trades are affected, and there could be unemployment, such as the property agency trade, renovation contractors, and so on. All relevant services trades are affected. And also the introduction of harsh measures against Hong Kong's reputation as the freest economy. All the side effects have been discussed time and again at the Bills Committee. As the chairman of the Bills Committee, I've followed closely all the views expressed by members and different deputations. Some of the views make sense. We agree that some of the harsh measures will affect some of the trades. Yes, the harsh measures may have side effect, but in curbing soaring property prices and speculation, these measures have worked. They also have the support of the public. The CU Hong Kong conducted an opinion poll in September 2013. 62.26% support keeping the harsh measures. 14.1% support further tightening the regulation, and 89.2% believe property prices are too high. If this council could not endorse the harsh measures now, that would have serious repercussions, because market reading would be that there is no need for the harsh measures. The harsh measures will no longer work. So if the bill is voted down, there will be disaster in the property market. Speculation will come back, and we cannot even estimate how far property prices will go. So DAB believe this is an extraordinary measure in exceptional circumstances. Definitely the measures are controversial, but certainly these measures have worked too in curbing speculation. The measures also have the support of the majority of the public. That's why the DAB supports the bill, and we hope that this bill could be passed soon. President, during the committee stage, I will explain DAB's position on the various amendments. Now I would like to give the principles of the DAB on the various CSAs. First, about the BSD refund for redevelopment project. Yes, BSD should not stand in the way of redevelopment. Under the mechanism to refund the BSD, originally the proposal of a 6-year period is not flexible enough. It cannot take into account the practical operation of redevelopment. That's why the DAB supports the amendment to be moved by the administration. The refund mechanism will be improved, and that will lessen the impact of the harsh measures on redevelopment project. It will speed up redevelopment. And second point, amendment is about withdrawing the BSD exemption for HKPR miners. The DAB is very concerned that the refund of the exception arrangement may be open to abuse, because miners cannot actually ensure their own interest. So for the non-HKPR trustees, intermediaries, or guardians of HKPR miners may exploit the BSD exemption arrangement. That's why DSB supports the latest amendment to withdraw such a BSD exemption. This will minimize abuse. The third point is about exempting HKPR-owned companies. Some have proposed that for HKPR-owned companies or charitable institutions, they should be exempted from the BSD. The BSD is concerned that this may send out a wrong message to the government, that this government is going to lessen the harsh measures. The Hong Kong property market is highly sensitive to any policy moves. So this may bring back speculation, and this is not what we want to see in society. The fourth point is about sunset clause. The DAB does not agree there should be a sunset clause in the bill, because no one can foresee when is the best time to withdraw the measures, when the property market has stabilized. So there are a lot of uncertainties. If we set any time frame, it may only cause confusion to the property market, and it may help speculation. The fifth point is about the domicile concept. Now, the amendment to introduce the domicile concept will make it complicated in enforcing the bill, because as we determine the domicile of a person, we have to look into the facts and the relevant evidence, and also we have to ascertain the intent of the person. And this controversial matters that have to be handled by the court. Now, this is extraordinary measure under exceptional circumstances, so it will be very difficult to bring in this concept of domicile. Finally, Mr. President, on the revision of the BSD and SSD rate mechanism, the DSB, I'm going to give you the DAB position. Now, a few days ago, the Secretary for Transport and Housing has proposed a new arrangement. If we revise the BSD and SSD rates upwards, it will be done by way of a bill. But if, say, there is a sudden turn in market sentiment and there is need to adjust downwards to BSD and SD rates, it could be done by way of negative vetting. Now, if there are harsher measures, and it's done by way of introduction of bill to the council, members will have sufficient time to consider these measures. But then, when there is room for revising downwards the rates, there should be much controversy. So it could be done by way of the negative vetting. That's the position of the DAB. But for harsh measures, we believe it's important that they take immediate effect. Otherwise, these measures won't be effective. Now, since the community has different views on harsher measures or less harsh measures, if there are different approaches in dealing with them by way of law, we don't see a problem with that. President, as I mentioned just now, the harsh measures could cool down the property market. Still, property prices remain high. There is now a large number of new residential developments coming onto the market, and we see that there is downward pressure. There's pressure in adjusting downwards property prices. So if the council could not pass this bill today, at the end of the day, it will be the whole community of Hong Kong who would stand to lose. So I hope members will support this bill, and on behalf of the DAB, I support the resumption of a second reading debate of the bill.
Mr. Kenneth Leung. Point of order, Mr. Deputy. I would like to call for a head count, a quorum count. Please ring the bell.
干咩？梁繼昌議員。
Mr. Kenneth Leung, Mr. Deputy, the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2012. On the 18th of January 2013, we started our deliberation, and it has taken 15 months' time. There were 22 meetings, including a special meeting yesterday. Well, at the end of the day, we haven't come up with a very good result. Now, for this bill, there are two major objectives. First of all, there is this proposal to adjust the rates of the SSD as well as the holding period. Secondly, the idea of a buyer's stamp duty at BSD has been introduced. Mr. Deputy, well, originally, the legislative intent, the direction, and the majority of the provisions of the bill have our support. It used to be the position on my part. I also thought that for a demand-side management measure, I think we need to put it into practice before we can judge its impact and effectiveness on the market. Mr. Deputy, however, yesterday, at a special meeting of the Bills Committee, I proposed a motion which was not legally binding, and it was carried with a vote of 10-5. In that motion, I asked the SARG to defer the resumption of the second reading debate of the bill. As to the reason, well, let me tell you, 4 or 5 years ago, I learned from certain channels that the SARG would come up with a sudden idea, that is, as to how the SSD and BSD rates are to be amended. Now, the SARG has come up with this mechanism, that is, for Section 63A, as it stands, as far as a notice is gazetted, then the rates can be changed. But then I've learned that Professor Jiang Ping Leung, the STH, states that when he comes back to the LegCo, he will give a verbal commitment. That is, in the case of an increase of a stamp duty rate, he will be introducing a bill subject to the scrutiny of the LegCo, despite the different mechanism promised in Section 63A. In the case of a downward adjustment of the stamp duty rates, then the negative vetting process will still be relied upon. What is even more surprising and more awkward is that 2 Executive Council members told us of this rather than letting us know about it through proper and official channels. I have been surprised, and I also found that the legislative process of the legislature hasn't been given the due respect. Now, there are 3 major principles. First of all, as I have said, this is about the legislative process. Now, for a secretary to give a commitment in relation to a particular provision in this chamber, for him to do so verbally, is there a legal effect? Yesterday, the Secretariat has provided a paper to us. According to the case in the UK, Pepper against Hart, when the courts were to understand the meaning of a provision, there's no need to refer to the Hansard. That is, irrespective of the speeches made by officials and members, there's no need for the court to refer to such unless the provision in the law is unambiguous, very ambiguous. Now, I would like to turn to an even more serious principle. For the so-called verbal commitment of the STH presented to us through the two Executive Council members has reflected that the relationship between the executive and the legislature is most undesirable. Now, we have gone through a very vigorous process to scrutinize the bill. And then the bill has got provisions in writing. And the bill itself has been gazetted. And we have got committee stage amendments here. And yet, the secretary is saying that he has had a word with some friendly members, and so he will make changes to the provisions. I just want to know whether it is creating a very bad precedent. Moreover, if we are to continue with such a trend, is there any respect for our rule of the law? Now, if hastily the administration would like to make some changes to our bill, does it mean that a secretary will come up with a verbal commitment and we are expected to say yes? I don't think we should ignore this, and I find this totally unacceptable. Other than the question about the core values, about the spirit of the rule of law, Mr. President, in relation to the financial management of the SARG in terms of the so-called financial ethics, I think there is a problem with this so-called adjustment mechanism. In the case of upward adjustments, it is said that we can have a bill, we can scrutinize first before enactment, while the direction is otherwise, then we will have a negative vetting process. Never have I seen that when it involves public revenue, we have got something similar. There's also one other point that makes me doubtful. That is, for the laws of Hong Kong, we do have a mechanism to come up with negative vetting for subsidiary legislation. And I think it is an established mechanism, and it has been proven effective. I'm referring to CAP 120, Protection of Public Revenue. I understand that the Transport and Housing Bureau colleagues have told us that this is not related to public revenue. Rather, it is a way to control or regulate consumers' behavior, and therefore CAP 120 doesn't cover this bill. I find it surprising. This is because when I turn to CAP 120, well, according to CAP 120, there is public revenue protection, duties, tax, fees, and rates, and other revenue would be covered by the ordinance. In CAP 120, in fact, there is no requirement that as far as public revenue is concerned, it should be the sole purpose or the main purpose. That is, if a particular amount of public revenue is for other purposes as well, that public revenue will still be regarded as public revenue. Now, for CAP 120, it is said that, in fact, to protect public revenue, there can be a notice to be gazetted so as to protect the public revenue. But then, in 4 months' time, the government must introduce a bill so as to seek the endorsement of the provisions. If the government fails to do so in 4 months' time, then the excess duty or taxes collected for the time being have to be refunded to the payer. Of course, the THB colleagues told us at a Bills Committee meeting that this is not applicable. I just cannot understand why. Is it because the bill comes from the THB rather than FSTB? I can try to refer to what Ms. Denise Yu, the former secretary for FST, has said in the year 1999 on the 5th of May. At that time, In relation to the budget, there was a proposal to increase the fees, and that's about the fixed penalty tickets for traffic summons. Ms. Denise Yu at the time explained to us what is meant by Public Revenue Protection Ordinance, that is Cap 120.
佢就話咧 proper and legal for the Public Revenue Protection Revenue Order。嗱喺呢個條例草案入邊咧，行政長官係可以俾一個 order， 立刻係改動稅率嘅。
That is, the chief executive can make an order to protect public revenue
for traffic offences, because fixed penalties constitute an income or revenue。我所要大家注意。
So I wish members to note that fixed penalties constitute income or revenue to the government.
當然啦，我哋交通嘅罰款，呢啲罰款啊，當然係要。
So of course, there must be. The purpose of fixed penalty tickets is to regulate Hong Kong people's behavior, but this does not turn revenue or income into something else. This is indeed government's revenue. So I don't understand why, instead of using the existing mechanism, the government is inventing another new mechanism. And I'm also perplexed at the idea that among all the taxations imposed by the government, what kind of taxes should the government use negative vetting and what kind positive vetting? There could be various ways, and there is no coordination among government departments. The administration has not been able to explain clearly to the Bills Committee, members of this Council, and the general public what it means. So it's really puzzling. Yesterday, at the Bills Committee, a motion was carried, but it was not legally binding. The idea is to urge the administration to incorporate the so-called undertaking into the bill. This is what the government should do. I have no intention of delaying the passing of this bill. Mr. Deputy, if we look at the legislative timetable of this Council, apart from a short debate on the budget next week, for the first 2 weeks of in March, there will be a break for 2 weeks. And if the administration can accept the Bills Committee's suggestion to incorporate the undertaking into the bill, then after the 2 weeks recess, the bill can be, and the revised bill can be tabled in this Council for debate. And also, under Rules of Procedure, Rule number 40(1), I move a motion that this debate be now adjourned. Now, as Mr. Kenneth Leung has moved an adjournment of debate, I must deal with this motion first. And the question put is that Mr. Kenneth Leung has moved a motion that the debate be of the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2012 be now adjourned. And according to the Rules of Procedure, that no amendments may be allowed on the motion for adjournment of a debate. Secretary for